Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call the Honourable Dr David Clark.
Madam Speaker, in New South Wales, where they implemented similar legislation, as we've just heard from the member, an Ombudsman's review found multiple failings in this approach, including in practice where no firearms were located in over 600 searches. The bill itself sounds well-intentioned, but in fact it's actually ill-advised and doesn't address the issue, the key issue, of how police ensure only fit and proper people hold a firearms licence or have access to firearms. And I'm sure everyone in this House is wondering why, if this was so important, the National Government, who have only been out of office for 1 year, didn't do something to address this over their 9 years here on this side of the House. They were here for 9 years, and certainly the statistics I've seen suggest that gun violence has been pretty static over that most recent 5-year period. It doesn't seem to be a big issue, but suddenly it has become a big issue when the politics have changed. This is a knee-jerk reaction. It's actually about enabling the extension of searches without warrants. Plain and simple. This is a bill that undermines human rights principles and it enables the extension of search without warrants. In fact, it puts the police in an invidious position. They've recommended the government not support this bill. The bill, they say, has serious flaws and will not deliver on the intent as outlined in the general policy statement. That's from the police, the people the member purports to want to be supporting here. Madam Speaker, the fit and proper person test already effectively bans gang members and prospects from holding firearms licences. The way the law is drafted now, it has restrictions around who can hold a firearms licence, and this does nothing except promote searches without warrants. Concerns have been raised about police accountability and, of course, human rights legislation, where searches can be based on subjective reasoning rather than on sufficient facts. And here's the kicker, Madam Speaker, here's the kicker. There's a National Party member who said not so long ago that the National Party firmly believes, or this person firmly believes, that searches should not be enforced without warrants, apparently in complete contradiction to the bill's intent. And who do we think that was? That said out there publicly that searches should not be enforced without warrants. Well, it was none other than the National Party leader. The National Party leader doesn't seem to support the intent of this bill. And here is a member trying to push something through that he popped in the biscuit tin because he thought would be popular, that actually undermines human rights, and all it does is extend searches without warrants, Mr. Speaker. I bet that member's feeling a bit awkward right now, because what this bill does and doesn't do, Madam Speaker, will be laid completely bare in this debate that we are having now. What we actually need is a more solid piece of work, and I trust the Honourable Member Stuart Nash to do that piece of work. In fact, I know that he has work underway to make sure that we in this House receive a bill that actually addresses the wider issues in this area, that looks at the fit and proper person test, looks at how we can make sure that we have a strategy to deal with gangs generally, a proper plan rather than a piecemeal approach that looks simplistically at what can be done, that looks across the Tasman at a piece of legislation that their Ombudsman has pointed to multiple failings in. Madam Speaker, we recognise that the existence of gangs may be symptomatic of a deeper structural issue we have in society, and it needs to be dealt with in a more sophisticated manner. It needs to be cohesive and sensible decisions made if we are to effectively take action against organised crime. So what I'm saying and what I'm arguing, Madam Speaker, is this bill would not make New Zealand safer. Where it's been implemented in similar cases overseas, we have seen that these weapons have not been found. Warrantless searches may also increase hostility toward police. Those who have been securing firearms illegally, who don't hold a firearms licence, are the ones most likely to commit gun crime. And they are hardly going to change their behaviour in response to this threat. Madam Speaker, it is likely also to be costly for the taxpayer, as each of these FPOs must be signed off individually and may be challenged in the courts. This bill would demand more administration resources from police and the courts. So not only is it likely to be ineffective, not only is it likely to undermine human rights principles, it's likely to be costly, Madam Speaker. And at this point, I should reveal my hand and say that we on this side of the House in the Labor Party will not be supporting this bill. We don't support legislation that's ineffective, that undermines human rights and that costs the taxpayer money to be ineffective. It is a crazy piece of legislation, Madam Speaker. What we need is a more comprehensive response that actually gets to the nub of the issue and looks at how we can ensure that fit and proper people have access to firearms and those that are not do not, Madam Speaker. As I say, currently an applicant must be able to be deemed fit and proper to possess or use firearms, and set criteria are used to determine that. So affiliation with a criminal group is already listed as making a person ineligible for a firearms licence. It will not, Madam Speaker, some statistics here. In 2014, 3,969 patched members of gangs were analysed in relation to firearms offences. 44% have been charged for an offence involving a firearm, 9% have been charged 5 or more times over their lifetime, and less than 1% of those surveyed held a firearms licence at the time of the survey. So, Madam Speaker, it's not like these are people trying to comply. It's not like these are people who are going to be affected by searches and so on. And in fact, if guns ever are found, as they were not in New South Wales, it's likely that they may, those who have criminal intent may, if weapons are seized, go and take more. Madam Speaker, it's not likely to be effective legislation. It leaves the police open to allegations of bias. It leaves legal action open. It's likely to be costly. And, Madam Speaker, the law already restricts firearms licence holders and says that firearms won't be issued to someone known to have convictions for violent offences. So we already have protections in place, Madam Speaker. We already have restrictions in place. One more point I wanted to make, Madam Speaker, was that firearms offences are on the rise, but the number of firearms stolen has actually remained relatively consistent over the last 5 years. If National feels it is an issue, and I did say this earlier, we would wonder why they didn't do something about this earlier, if it really was something that they thought was consistent. But gun-related incidents per 100,000 people have been tracking down since the 1980s, more broadly. This seems to be an issue motivated by politics and one that will not produce the solution that the member purports to do. When the police say this is something that isn't going to work, we need to listen to them. When they say this is something that does, that they're worried about, they've got concerns about, we need to listen on this side of the House. We will, and the Labor Party will. I think the other thing that really is concerning, Madam Speaker, is a general view that we've heard from that side of the House, that some people have fewer human rights than others. And one wonders whether that's something that's at play again here. That's something that Paula Bennett has previously said. Well, the Labor Party doesn't agree with that. We think human rights, fair ways of judging whether someone is fit to hold a firearms licence should apply, not subjective tests that put police at risk, that put police in an awkward position, that are unlikely to be effective and that are very likely to be costly to the taxpayer because they can be disputed and they involve creating a whole new bureaucracy, Madam Speaker. What we need to do, of course, is enforce the current restrictions. They will be sufficient for ensuring that those who should not be issued with a firearms licence are not, and a broader piece of work that looks at the broader societal issues, that is more sophisticated in its response, not a political knee-jerk reaction.
Point of order, Chris Bishop.
Madam Speaker, the Minister in his reply said that the government had been advised by the police that they were opposed to this bill. He's quoting from an official document, an Understanding Order 376. I ask him to table that official advice.
Will you seek leave for that purpose? Okay. The Honourable Dr. David Clark.
Speaking to the point of order, I don't have the official document with me. I've got my own notes taken down, Madam Speaker, so I'm afraid the member's a little misguided in that.
Madam Speaker. But he can. It is official advice.
So, I apologise. I couldn't remember. Could you were making a point? Are you speaking to the point of order?
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I'm just saying that I don't have an official document with me. I have my own speaking notes.
You are quoting from an official document?
I was quoting from some papers I read earlier, Madam Speaker.
No, that's okay. I apologise to the member. If the Minister is not quoting from an official document, he's not required to table it.
The Standing Order 376 is quite clear. When a Minister quotes from a document relating to public affairs, a member may, on a point of order, require the Minister to table the document.
It's not an official document.
What?
That's the point, Mr. I call Tim van der Molen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Under that standing order, there is no specification around an official document. It simply states a document. So if you are providing a new ruling, that would be fantastic to get that clarification. But under that standing order, it does not require it to be an official document, but simply a document relating to public affairs, which this document would clearly be.
Thank you. So just I thank the member for your contribution. Just taken some advice. The member has been quoting from his speaking notes. Now, within that contained some information that was provided to the House. He is not required to table his speaking notes. I call the Honourable Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In light of that,